Hi, I'm Bybreen Samuels, and welcome back to another episode of Soul Stirring Astrology. Well, ordinarily I deliver a video, but as you can see this week I'm delivering this as a podcast, and the reason for this is because I'm feeling the effects of Mercury retrograde. I've had a serious defect with my video recording equipment, so hence the podcast. And as they say, the show must go on, and what a week it is. So the major astrological aspect that we're experiencing this week is this Cardinal Grand Cross that's taking place between four planets. And so there's an opposition between the Sun and Uranus. The Sun's in Libra and Uranus is in Aries. And then there's another opposition between the Moon in Cancer opposing Pluto in Capricorn. And as a result of this configuration, these four planets, i.e. the two oppositions, create four squares between the planets. So it's a significant aspect. And each of the planets are in one of the individual elements. And what I mean by this is there are four astrological elements. So we have fire, air, earth and water. And so the Sun is in an air sign. Earth, we have Pluto in earth. And Uranus is in fire, and the Moon is in water. It's in Cancer, and it's actually in its own sign. And what makes it the Cardinal Grand Cross is because these planets fall within angular houses. And what I mean by that is that the planets fall in houses that are that follow on from the four angles, the four main angles within a chart. And so one angle is the ascendant, then you have the IC, then you have the descendant and the MC. And these are significant points within any astrological chart. They're cardinal signs as well, and so they equate with nature. So Aries, for example, we know that to be the spring equinox, and then we have Cancer, which is the summer solstice, and then Libra, we've just entered the autumn equinox, and then the winter solstice is represented by Capricorn. And so when we're dealing with the cardinal signs and the angular houses, well, cardinal signs actually generate and release new energy. So you may be feeling very energetic. And the fact that the planets are placed within angular houses means that they are spurring us into action in some way, shape or form. Now, the planets, what's actually being represented here, because of the angles, it's about having a strong impact on our individuality in some way. So we're dealing with the first house, and so that's about your personal identity. The fourth house relates to your home, your ancestry, your family background. Seventh house is the house of relationships, and the 10th house is the point in the chart that deals with your career. And so this Cardinal Grand Cross is connected to those 4 points. So it really is showing up very strongly in your life. And so because we're dealing with oppositions and squares within the configuration, there's going to be a strong element of inner turmoil and external conflicts that you may be experiencing in one form or another during this whole week. So let me just take you through some of the aspects. So we've got this Sun in Libra in the first house opposing Uranus in the 7th house of Aries. And so what this could suggest is that you might actually get a surprise from somebody you know, could be in a close relationship or a partnership, that impacts on your actions in some fundamental way. And so it's a surprise. So it could be within the relationship that you're having. This person might deliver something that's completely unexpected. It could be the end of a relationship in some way. It could be actually in some way that you're experiencing a threat to your personal freedom and identity, and you feel that you're being called to sacrifice this in order to maintain the relationship. You could fear losing your sense of individuality. And then again, you might recognize that actually if you remain far too self-centered, then you're blocking the ability for anybody or people to bring love within your world. And so where we're looking at that first and the 7th house opposition, it's the self versus others. Then looking at the other opposition, which is the moon opposing Pluto. So the moon is in her sign of Cancer, and she's opposing Pluto in Capricorn. And so they are in the 4th and 10th house respectively. So there's the tension here is between your home life and the desire to go out into the world and establish yourself in a career. And so there's a tension because we're dealing with, you might be pulled to remain back in the home in some way, or you might feel that you're struggling to assert yourself to move out into the public world to develop a career because you're having emotional, very powerful arguments, or you're coming into conflict with a powerful person within your home environment. It could be your spouse, it could be another family member, it could be your child, whereby you're feeling that they're trying to overpower your decision to go out into the world to make a name for yourself. Also, because of this configuration, we've got the moon and Pluto. So Pluto is about excavating and bringing up those deep, resentful feelings that you may have. And so it's a time whereby your feelings are being churned up and they're being forced to be brought out into the open, and you might feel overwhelmed by all of that. Alternatively, you might be going through a period where you're blowing things out of proportion, and so therefore you're making mountains out of molehills. And so it's about being mindful about how you are showing up emotionally. So they're the two main oppositions that are taking place. But then within all of that, there are squares. And so there's this 1st house to 4th house, so the Sun square Pluto. And so here we have personal identity versus a situation that's going on within your home environment. And so because we're dealing with Pluto and the Sun, so the Sun's about the ego and Pluto is about challenging that. And so you might feel a sense of being pressured or burdened by other people, what they think, or you may feel as if you're being forced to make changes that you may not be ready to take on board. And it's another opportunity for you to see what isn't actually working in your life. And so the solution here might be to let go of that. So the kind of theme of change is showing up, particularly within this week of the configurations that are taking place. Another square is between the 4th and the 7th house, and here we have Pluto square Uranus. Now, this aspect has been going on for quite some time, and it's a call to revolutionize your home or your relationships in some way. Now, Pluto has been in Capricorn since 2008 and will remain there until 2024. So this is a very long aspect of change and transformation. And so if we set it in the context, because we're dealing with two outer planets here, that's Pluto and Uranus. So the impact of this aspect does show up in your personal world, but it also will show up in the social, political and economic world and the business world as well. So if we go back to 2008, Pluto entered Capricorn in November 2008, and actually that coincided with the election of the American election, the American presidential election, where Barack Obama was elected president, and that was in November 2008, and in January 2009 he was inaugurated. So I was one of many millions of people in the Washington Mall, really enjoying this transformational moment in history. It was clearly the world's event. It was the party of the century. And so although it was minus 17 in the Washington Mall, the sun rose in our hearts because we were witnessing the changing of the guard. And so here we have this Pluto going through Capricorn, and Capricorn is a representation of the old way of doing things, the old way of being, the old politics, the old structures. And Pluto moving into Capricorn was about deconstructing that, breaking that down to enable something else to come through. And so Barack Obama's election inauguration is an example of this Pluto square, the Pluto in Capricorn, and Pluto squaring Uranus. Now, this aspect is also showing up if we take the concept of change and transformation. We're seeing this reflected in the market. So in the business world, there's been lots of disruption. And so that's what Pluto and Uranus can bring, is disruption to the way that we ordinarily experience things. So, for example, back in 2008 again, what we began to see was the rise really of the laptop entrepreneur. And I remember reading an article in Time magazine, and this was around about April 2009, and it was talking about, the old way of doing business is gone. And so, as we all remember and experienced, the economic downturn, so we were in the eye teeth of it. And so when companies like the Lehman Brothers went down, nobody expected that. So it really was a significant shift in terms of the old is gone. And so here's an opportunity for new things, new ways of being, new paradigms, new models of business were being developed. And so back in 2008, Airbnb, for example, was a fledgling entrepreneurial enterprise. Now it's quite a giant in terms of business, but it completely has disrupted the hotel industry. So that's a great example of a small, nimble entrepreneurial outfit that has disrupted a very solid industry. We've also seen it again in the transport industry. If we take Uber, so it's where you can there's an app whereby you can call for a cab, and what Uber is actually selling all of us is time. And so Uber has disrupted the taxi hiring sector right across the world. Another sector that's been disrupted is the publishing world, and so the rise of the self-publisher. I've experienced that myself, having gone through that process, and it's completely liberated people who want to write and bring their material to the world and publish it and bring some credibility to who they are. So what we're looking at, this transit, this Pluto in Capricorn and Pluto squaring Uranus, it's a period. And so between now and 2024, we're going to see major disruptions of what appear to be settled markets. And another sector that I think is going to experience this is the education sector. And we're already beginning to see this with a company like the Khan Academy. So when we're looking at it on a personal point of view, the disruption is around, our home world and our world of relationships. There's a conflict that's taking place there, and it's triggering change in some way. Another square that we have here is the 7th to the 10th house, and that's Uranus squaring the moon. And that's forcing you to deal with problems that you may have been ignoring for quite some time. It could disrupt your sense of emotional security. And that's a choice between, do you go out there in the world and establish yourself, or do you sacrifice your relationship, or the other way around? So it could be a time, if you're able to deal with the square and manage the square, it could actually lead you to a sense of emotional freedom and liberation. So it could bring about a greater understanding of your actual emotional needs. And then the last square in this Cardinal Grand Cross is the square from the 1st to the 10th house, and that involves the Sun squaring the Moon. And so we have the Sun in Libra and we have the Moon in Cancer. And you might, and because it's in the 10th house, you might find that you're having emotional conflicts with people in the world of work. It could be with your bosses or other sorts of authority figures. It's a time where you're dealing and trying to manage the kind of hidden tensions between your personal identity and what's being required of you to show up in your world of work. And so it's a square, so it's an inner tension that you're beginning to experience in that way. So, as I can say, a lot going on within this Cardinal Grand Cross, and there are other aspects that are taking place this week. So on the 9th of October, we have two shifts. One is that Venus leaves Leo, has been there for a couple of months and moves into Virgo. And when she does that on October the 9th, she's going to be joining Jupiter, who's there for the next year, and also Mars, which will be there for the next few weeks. And so this is a really great configuration. It's a time of prosperity, it's a time of love, it's a time of hard work, but it's a really beneficial time. And actually, although we're in Libra, we're still feeling the effects of Virgo, because we have this Jupiter energy that's going through Virgo. Mars is there, and so that's about conferring, a great sense of really going for what it is that you want. With Venus showing up with Mars, it's very much about love and togetherness, and Venus is softening Mars, and so once it makes the conjunction there, it will soften the Martian elements. Also, they're all in the sign of Virgo, and so for those of you who are looking for a romance, it's a great time, but actually you might meet somebody in your world of work or through work, and you might meet somebody who is your intellectual equal, because Virgo is ruled by Mercury. So also because Venus is moving through there, it's a great time for self-expression through your creativity and love. So with Mars conjunct Jupiter, it's a great time for confidence boosting, not so much building because it's there. So it's about feeling really strong and vigorous. And it's a great time to launch that enterprise that you've been nursing for quite some time. So it's a very, very favourable time. Other aspects going on this week, we've got Mars square Saturn. And that is an energy that's being carried over from last week. And here Mars might feel slightly tempered, to slow down and to really think about its plan of action before it executes. And that's where, good old Saturn, the teacher in all of our charts, is showing us, maybe exercise a little bit of caution here. And you can still do what needs to be done, but think about what needs to be done. And on October the 10th, we've got the moon conjunct Jupiter. And so this is a really beautiful energy, because it leads to a deep emotional understanding. It's about your ability to show a greater level of kindness, warmth and generosity. Another aspect and another movement that takes place on October the 9th is Mercury leaves its retrograde energy and goes direct. It's already in Libra and it's moving direct, so communication should become easier. And as I said, I've had this blip with my video recording, so it's about making sure that our communications are anchored in a way as we move forward through this Libran energy. Which is about communicating in a harmonious way, bringing balance. It could be a good time for negotiation, seeing other people's points of view, integrating them in some way. So that gives you a sense of how Mercury is going to continue showing up through Libra. We've had this square that exists between Saturn and Neptune, and it's a conflict between the realities of the world and the ideals of the world. And so this is an aspect that's going on for quite some time, and we're really seeing this in a pronounced way when we look at the crisis and the turmoil and the trauma that our refugee friends are going through in all parts of the world. And so it's about trying to bring this resolution between the authoritarian way of doing things, the very rigid way of doing things, the old guard wanting to maintain boundaries and borders and keeping people out, And then Neptune's energy is about soothing that and bringing down the boundaries so that everybody feels part of the collective. What else do I have for you? Well, another trine that we have going on, and it's a great one for this week, is the trine that's between Jupiter and Pluto. So it's a great time to expand your ideals, your passions, but it's not only for yourself, it's about whatever you're doing, how can that benefit other people? So it's about taking on and leading and delivering and implementing something that's going to bring about a change that benefits the collective. So whatever your idea is, it's a great time for you to implement that because it could have a major social impact. It's a time of feeling so much faith that you feel as if you have enough faith to move mountains. And so that brings me to the end, actually, in terms of the major configurations that are going on in this week of this Cardinal Grand Cross and the supplementary transits that are taking place. And so the theme of all of this is about change, is about transformation, is about being aware of, how are you handling the power in your world? How are you emitting it? How are you embracing it? How are you dealing with power coming from other people or situations or scenarios? Also, how are you handling change, the unexpected changes that are, forcing their ways into your world? We've got this Uranus in Aries and it's cardinal, so it really wants to make an impact. And so the quote I'm going to leave you with this week is from Deepak Chopra, and he says, "All great changes are preceded by chaos." So for some of you out there, it may be a very chaotic week. You might be feeling internal chaos, and the chaos might be coming to you from the outside world, but it all is leading us or pointing us towards change. And so on that note, I look forward to speaking to you again. It may be in a podcast format, it may be I might be back to my video, or it could be a combination of both. We'll see. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them in the comment box below. If you found any of this useful, share it with your network and subscribe to the channel. Have a fantastic week, and I will speak to you again soon.